first night that the DEP told you had to do some things related to sewage and you felt it was going to be costly, right?
Right. With the first contact I had with DEP when I was working with Gateway Engineer prior to coming to this hearing, or prior to even applying for the hearing, was I contacted DEP. Once we came to this hearing, I recontacted DEP, and they still said there are requirements out there. There is grandfathering. They discussed with me that sometimes trailers over 40 years old could not be moved, depending on each of those trailers had to be evaluated if you were to move them, because it is very costly. If there were sewage, things would have to be tested. There would be, so yes, the conversations with DEP. So yeah, I guess I have had a little follow-up with this email, but it was all through email. So you have all the email and everybody has the email.
Okay, but
so what is your direct question?
My question is to avoid all of these requirements from the DEP. You and Mr. Omatick just went ahead and did it. You just moved it.
No, we just learned of these. We just learned that that mobile home was moved prior to any conversation with DEP. Like the stuff with DEP that we started to have conversations, it has just been over the last couple months.
Okay, but you know that there are DEP requirements that you're avoiding, correct?
What do you mean there are DEP requirements we're avoiding? What are we avoiding?
You testified on the first night that you might be required to put in a treatment facility, it might be expensive.
Well, I don't think they're avoiding it. I think that is an option, and that is not a viable option. Mr. Omatick and I made the plea to this board that there are 5 homeowners up there. They live in those homes. They've lived there. They don't have anywhere else to go. If Mr. Omatick would have to subdivide, we've been told from DEP that most likely he would need a sewage facility, and this was prior to coming to this meeting. Then I reached out to DEP for more clarification. So no, the stuff we were testifying was not, we're not trying to, Mr. Omatick, yes, he's not avoiding it. Mr. Omatick would not be able to afford to put in a treatment facility to serve those mobile homes. There are rental units up there. Those individuals own those. DEP said they gave me requirements that if trailers are over 40 years old, they may not even be able to be moved. They'd have to be abandoned. So I don't think, Mr. Omatick, the work was all done. That mobile home was moved before any conversations with DEP ever happened.
To appropriately move the home and subdivide the property, there are requirements. There are DEP requirements, there are township requirements, there are requirements from the sewage council. Right?
Right. If you have a non-conforming use, the trailers were there before the zoning went in. He thought he was just moving it from the top of his property to the bottom of his property.
But by your attempt to move that particular mobile home, Mr. Omatick's attempt, from the trailer park where it was existing, that triggers additional requirements from a variety of agencies. Can you agree with that?
Correct.
Okay. And you and Mr. Omatick haven't complied with any of them because you just went ahead and did it.
No.
Okay. I'm not going to belabor the point.
Well, I don't think that was a question you just asked me. I think that was your own assumption that you just made. I mean, we have worked with the township. Mr. Omatick has been a lifelong resident. I've been a resident for 10 years. I'm in this community. I serve on other boards in this community. And I think Mr. Omatick was just trying, and the same thing we did here last time, is just present his case. He's looking for a continuance of his non-conformance I mean, he started off with one thing on his property. He didn't come to this township. He's not here to try to sneak and lie, right? And I'm very disappointed in this process that he's being accused of being a liar. He didn't know what he was going to do. He did start off with a storage. His father passed away. His daughter was going to live there. He had family issues. The brother ended up keeping the house. His daughter needed somewhere to go. So he put her there. So no, and that was explained to you guys. We tried to make that argument before. So I'm not here, Mr. Omatick's not here to lie, to sneak, to steal. So I just really resent. If you have questions, ask me a question. I don't like being just attacked that, well, we set up to do something that we really, I mean, it wasn't like we were trying, he wasn't trying to do anything.
Ms. Mowery, you and Mr. Omatick never came back to the township and told them at any point when you made the decision, let's say the decision did happen after the fact, you never came back to the township to tell them, well, we want to have a second residential structure out here, we need, you know, can we get a permit? You never did that, did you?
No.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Mowery, have you reached out to any members of the zoning hearing board related to this matter?
Yeah, I did. I sit on the board with Ms. Martin Barney, and I reached out to her.
Okay. Did you speak to any members of the zoning hearing board?
Mr. Prickett was in my neighborhood. I talked to him all the time.
About this particular matter?
Yes, we spoke about this matter.
Okay. Did you reach out to him after this hearing process started?
Maybe to tell him that I was going to contact, that Jeff was going to get an attorney, and to tell him I was very disappointed in this process.
Okay. What else did you tell Mr. Prickett?
Mr. Omatick and I were under the understanding this was more of a community thing, and I was told by numerous people that...
How long are you going to let this go on? I mean, none of this has anything to do with what we've applied for.
Well, now I have a couple of
We're
questions
like
about
2
whether
hours
she's had
into it.
contact
You
with the
have
zoning
other-
hearing board,
other
which is very
people-
important to put in the record.
There's 5
if there's an
people,
issue.
Other people are waiting, and you're just letting
Mr.
them
Barney.
ramble. Get control of the hearing.
I just want to be clear. You reached out and spoke to Mr. Prickett after this hearing started, correct?
Yes, I told him I was very disappointed in this whole situation, that I was told originally coming into this, as well as Mr. Omatick, this was a simple thing, that when people in the township want to do something that's a hardship, as well as I had the conversation with Gateway, it was a hardship, it was an unfortunate thing that happened with Mr. Omatick, and there was a situation with all these people here, that if it was something somebody was doing in the community that was a betterment, that was looked at as, you know, a good thing in the community. And I thought when we walked into this hearing last time, the way on the building permits and him putting a roof on and other things that were said, and the way you had, you know, first of all, when I first came in here, it was, you can't even be up here and talk to him because you're not an attorney. I mean, I just thought it was very adversarial. And yeah, I did reach out. Mr. Prickett and I sit on the Republican committee together. We do other things together. We are neighbors. We walk our dogs in the woods. Well, when I used to have a dog.
Okay. And you spoke to him about this particular hearing?
Yes.
Okay. After it had started. And you gave him your opinions on it, right?
Yeah, the same opinion I'm giving to everybody right now. I did not give him any different opinion than I stated last meeting and that I've stated now.
Did you solicit any information from Mr. Prickett?
No.
Did you reach out to any other members of the zoning hearing board about this hearing?
No, I had spoken to Mrs. Barney, which is Alan's wife.
Okay.
I sit on the sanitary board with her.
Okay. And did you ask Mrs. Barney to convey information to Mr. Barney about this hearing?
I asked her to go over and to take a look at the property, actually, because the last hearing when we came here, Mr. Barney went right ahead and was like talking about the roof that the building permit that we applied for after the fact, because the township told us to do that. So I had just said, could you go over and look at the property and understand what is really going on?
And did you go out to the property with Mrs. Barney or Mr. Barney?
I'm sorry, what?
Did you go out to the property
No.
with Mr. Barney or Mrs.
No.
Barney? Did you speak to any other members of the zoning hearing board about this case?
No.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have for Ms. Mowery.
Members have a question for us? No. Witness? Chris? No. Anybody in the audience have questions? No?
I would like to just move into evidence the additional exhibits that I entered with Ms. Mowery.
Any objections?
My objections have been noted.
the township does not have any additional witnesses.
If there's no other testimony to come, I'd like to make a motion to deny the applicant's request for a continuance of non-conforming use.
The motion being made and seconded. Does anybody want a second? I will second based on section 402, which states there can be no more than one principal property on one piece of property, one principal residence. So I'll second that motion. The motion being made and seconded, all in favor by vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. The board will now take a 5-minute break before continuing.